This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Visit progressive.com to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary, not available in all states or situations.
This episode is presented by Tully, the perfect tool for high school and Division III programs. Tully helps coaches track player readiness, performance, and development all in one simple platform. Instead of guessing where your athletes stand, you'll know who's ready, who needs attention, and how your team is trending week to week. With Tully, you get the confidence that your players will stay strong and prepared deep into the season without adding more work to your staff. Learn more today at tully.app or click the link in the show notes.
It's really nice. We're able to kind of divide and conquer for the most part. Each member of our staff really has a valuable aspect of our game plan in terms of, hey, here's the things that I like, here's the things that I'm concerned about, and everybody's got a voice. It's each personnel group, each situation, everybody has an impact on that.
Wouldn't matter if we gave up a big play defensive side to the scout team. Just didn't seem like we had that passion, and that's something that we really focused on. We have core values at W&J, and compete. Passion is the second one, confidence is the third one, but that's something that we focus on a lot.
Welcome to the Hansen Ratings, D3 Coach and Coordinators of the Week, presented by Tully. Each week, we recognize outstanding performances across Division III football, highlighting coaches who had their teams ready, executed a great game plan, and found a way to win. Logan Hansen is here with us to break down this week's honorees. Let's start on the offensive side of the ball, Logan. Wheaton put up huge numbers this past week. What stood out to you?
Yeah, this week with Wheaton, one thing that really caught my eye is the 61 points, obviously, but they scored 61 points and they still turned the ball over 3 times. So there's room for them to improve still from this pretty high baseline. They had over 600 yards of offense on over 7.5 yards per play. They started the year at Mount Union and they had one of the lowest returning production numbers in the country for offensive production. I only had them at 39% returning per production. So it took them a little while to get going, but starting with that fourth quarter at Mount Union, over the last 9 quarters of play, they're averaging 2 touchdowns per quarter and 8 yards per play. This week, they did it with a pretty balanced attack. They had 386 yards passing, and they had over 250 yards rushing. So they've got a big game coming up next week with the defending national champs, North Central. And with the way this offense has been going, that should be a pretty great game. And congratulations to Wheaton and their staff. That offense is humming right now, and they're going to need it moving forward.
Unfortunately, Coach Houck was unable to join us before we publish this episode. We do have his interview, and we'll be sure to put that in here so you could come back to this episode and hear his insight into what has the Wheaton offense rolling. Congratulations again to Coach Houck and the offensive staff at Wheaton. Coaches, we all know the struggle with keeping players at their best over the course of a long season. You're trying to track readiness, monitor performance, and manage development, but most of the time it's scattered between paper check-ins, text messages, or spreadsheets that take hours to manage. That's where Tully comes in. Tully brings everything into one simple platform designed for high school and Division III programs. With quick athlete check-ins, you get real-time insight into player readiness, workload, and performance trends. That means fewer surprises, healthier players, and better decisions on practice and game day. If you want your team stronger, more durable, and more confident late in the season than they were in week 1, Tully is the tool you need. Learn more at tully.app or click the link in the show notes.
Moving on to Defensive Coordinator of the Week. This week, that goes to Matt Tschetter of Wartburg College, who beat Co 17-7 last week. Co came into the game as maybe the hottest offense in the country. They were averaging 57 points per game, and Wartburg held them scoreless for over 59 minutes of game time. Coe's quarterback was leading the entire country in passing efficiency before the game. He had a passer rating of over 250, and he was averaging 367 yards per game against Wartburg. They held him to 211 yards and a passer rating of 104. They intercepted him twice, they sacked him 4 times, and one of those sacks included a sack fumble for a score. And they also had 4 additional quarterback hits. Just an outstanding performance by Wartburg's defense, getting their hands on balls, and the defensive line not letting that passing attack get comfortable. And as we've come to expect from Wartburg's defense, they also shut down Coe's rushing attack. They had 24 rushing yards on 22 attempts and 9 tackles for a loss. In the one time before that final minute that Coe got into scoring position, Wartburg blocked a field goal attempt. So pick an aspect of this game where Wartburg's defense could have made a big play, and they were making those big plays, getting pressure on the quarterback, getting their hands on balls, and breaking through for a block on a field goal attempt. Just really impressive all around.
A huge defensive effort against a record-setting quarterback and explosive offense. Here's Coach Tschetter on the prep and execution that made it happen. Our next honoree is Matt Tschetter, defensive coordinator at Wartburg, named the Hansen Ratings Defensive Coordinator of the Week, presented by Tully. Coach, congrats on a great win this past weekend over one of your conference foes, and your defense did a phenomenal job.
Yeah, thanks, John. Really appreciate that. And, certainly most of the credit's going to go to the guys for sure. So they did an excellent job of getting themselves ready to play in a game like that. They prepared themselves really well throughout the week. So again, really proud of their effort, not just on game day, but throughout the week too. So really happy about that. And then certainly our coaching staff for sure. Obviously starting with our head football coach, Chris Winter, is obviously the guy that's got this thing rolling for sure. So nice having a guy like that, leading the charge for us. So he's a guy that he was the defensive coordinator at Wartburg for a long time before taking the head coach role. So having a guy like that to be able to help keep me in line for sure and help me organize some things. And he's also our defensive backs coach. So that's another nice boost for sure. So, and then obviously our defensive line coach, Coach Lape, he's got those guys rolling for sure. So we're getting a lot of really good pressure, up front with those guys. Those guys are playing physical. Those guys are playing hard, and it makes everybody else's jobs a lot easier having those guys ready to roll up front. So Coach Lape's doing an excellent job with those guys for sure. And then I've got an assistant linebacker coach helping me out, Coach Pollock. Does an awesome job helping just kind of behind the scenes a little bit. He's the guy that we have in the booth, have the eyes in the sky, and giving us some great information on game day, helping us in terms of breakdowns throughout the week, and does an excellent job. We can kind of break up our linebacker group a little bit and kind of focus on some more individual stuff with those guys and really help those guys develop throughout the week too. So that's really nice to have as well. And then we have Coach Jeff Beck, been involved in our program for a really long time, assists Coach Winter with the DBs as well, and does an excellent job of, and like I said, he's been around all over the place, and he's been experienced. He's bounced back and forth between offense, defense. So he's got a really unique style to be able to bring to the table in terms of teaching and getting those guys prepared as well too. So we're obviously just really proud about, with the total effort, starting with the guys. Having a mature approach with those guys is huge for sure. So guys with some experience, guys that are going to be leaders, guys that are going to kind of help the younger guys with less experience understand what it's about to be successful. That makes our jobs as coaches that much easier. So most credit going to those guys for sure.
You guys have had tremendous success there, and obviously you do a great job. In terms of what you want to share with coaches, you mentioned your weekly game plan structure. How about sharing that with the coaches out there? And I'm sure people will be interested in knowing, some of the things that you guys do, because again, you had great success there.
Yeah, for sure. That's something that we certainly don't take lightly. That's very regimented, structured, and how we approach that. And we want to try to streamline as much of that as we can. As much as possible, we don't want to stay in the office until, midnight, every night or anything like that too. We feel really good about our structure and how we're handling that, how we're dividing responsibilities throughout the week to be able to come together and put together a good plan for our guys to go compete. So yeah, just kind of start off on Sunday. So Sunday, obviously, we do spend a lot of time reviewing the previous kind of game the day before, really reviewing that, and even the whole week leading up to that too. So certainly just having, we have a team meeting and everything like that, reviewing some of the special teams, some of the things that went well, some of the things we need to do better. Then we break off into our position groups and review the entire game. So, and that's something that kind of be a challenge sometimes when you are having success and you are winning, a lot of games, it's easy to sit back and almost watch it from an entertainment, value, but being able to get the guys to focus and, hey, let's use this to get better. Let's use this to be able to help us win next week. That's really important to us, that we're going to watch things with a critical eye. We tell our guys, no matter what, it's never as good as it seems. It's never as bad as it seems. Okay. So there's something that we can always take away from that to improve how we're doing things and get better the next week. So we do spend a lot of time on that on Sunday. However, once we break from that, we move into the next week's opponents. Now, at that point, what we try to do is we try to get ahead to the point where on Sunday, we've got one game left to break down. So throughout the week, and as I kind of go through this, I'll explain that. But when we get to Sunday, we break with our players. Okay, we've got one game left to be able to break down the information that we need to help us put together the game plan. So we're going to finish that. We may put together, a hit chart at that point in time in terms of personnel, formation, backfield, the top plays of it, like to run in each personnel group, each formation, and just really kind of have a pretty good understanding of kind of what we're looking at for next week anyways. So we'll finish all that stuff up on Sunday. Obviously, once we break down the information, we're going to QC that ourselves in terms of, okay, let's make sure as one guy was breaking something down, somebody else was maybe breaking down a different game, making sure that we're calling all the, IDing the stuff all the same and being able to collect all that information to put it all into one solid hit chart, more or less. Then going into Monday, so the first thing we're going to do Monday morning is we're all individually responsible for looking at a different aspect of the game. So, for example, Coach Winter, our head football coach, our defensive backs coach, he's really going to dive into, okay, I'm going to go through, I'm going to watch more of the passing game. Okay, I'm going to really look into what are their favorite concepts when it's 3x1, when it's 2x2, what are the splits of the receiver, are there bunch sets, are they squeeze sets? And what are the things that we're really going to like in terms of our coverage aspect of things that we're really going to like to be able to call in more of a base scenario. So I'm going to look a little bit more at the run game is a little bit more of what I'm focused on. So I'm going through the run game. I'm using that hit chart information in terms of not just obviously, hey, these are their top run plays, but we play a little bit of a unique style of defense where the things that we're going to see against opponents is probably going to be a little bit different than what they run against other opponents. Okay. So we are a 4-down team, but the way that we align and the way that we play our front and in our box structure is a little bit unique. So trying to get an idea of what they prefer against similar type of looks is one thing, but also just, okay, tight end on, tight end off, where's the back at relative to where the tight end is? Do they like to run the ball in 11 personnel sets, or they try to heavy it up a little bit, 12 personnel sets? What's their go-to in terms of down and distance, that sort of thing. So really looking at the run game aspect, all the angles that we can take as much as possible. Obviously, when you're playing an opponent that you've played, a conference point, you get in conference play, that sort of thing. Usually you have a little bit more of an idea. It's always a little bit more of a challenge when you're playing somebody new and you don't have a lot of great looks to go from in terms of different defensive looks. That sort of thing is always a little bit more of a challenge, but usually we get a pretty good grasp of the information that we collect, throughout the week. So our D-line coach is going to really look at more of the protection aspect of things. So he's breaking down, okay, how do they protect, against a 4-down, a 3-down, if we shade a certain direction, if we widen anybody out, what kind of protections are we seeing from those guys? How can we implement some of our stunts, some of our pressures? What do we really like that we already have in our defense? And that's one thing that we really try to stray away from, is not trying to come up with a lot of just new things all of the time. We don't want to get into the element of having a defense of the week, so to speak. We really want to, okay, what are the things that we have in our defense, in our playbook already that's going to work well against what we're seeing? So he's really looking at that. So, and then from there, as I mentioned, Coach Pollock is another guy that's going to kind of get ahead a little bit on some of the breakdown information as well as we're rolling through that. Already start to draw some cards for Tuesday's practice and really kind of get ourselves ready to go, throughout the week on Mondays. So after we all individually look at those different aspects of the game, then we're going to come together as a defensive staff and we're going to really start with just our base game plan. So when we start with our base game plan on Monday, we're going just, personnel group by personnel group. Some offenses we see, maybe they run their entire offense out of one personnel group. Okay, then we have to look at it a little bit differently in how we're going to, call the game on Saturday. So, but anyways, we go through, like I said, usually the base way to do it, go through each personnel group. Let's put together a menu of ideas that we really like. What are our base fronts? What are our base coverages that we like? If it's 3x1, if it's 2x2, Where's the tight end at? Where's the back at? What are our base stunts that we really like? And really go through kind of each personnel group and just build more or less just a menu of, hey, here's the things that we really like in each personnel group and go from there. So that's the majority of Monday and what we want to get done. That's going to take, some time. We've done a really good job here this year of really staying ahead of the game. We can really kind of get that going fairly early Monday morning just because we get so far ahead on our breakdowns. So give us more time to be able to really discuss ideas, what we really like, what we want to maybe stay away from in our calls. So those are all things that we're really looking at on Monday anyways. And then Monday kind of takes us through. We're going to obviously, spend a good amount of time on some special teams. We don't have a special teams coordinator, so each one of our coaches is responsible for a different special team. A little bit of time for us to be able to each individually go through, okay, for example, the punt or the kickoff. And each coach is going to get a little bit of time to be able to look at that a little bit. We're going to come together as a full staff and watch all the special teams together too. And that's always a good time to be able to throw some ideas out there. Maybe it's not your special team that focusing on at the time, but you can kind of use some of the stuff that you've learned and maybe things that other opponents have done against you in the past to make it tough on you. So we do that all together as a full staff. Then from there, once that special teams meeting is done, we really go into getting Tuesday's practice ready. So at that point in time, we are scripting the practice, we are drawing the cards, and a lot of times we're already done with Tuesday's practice in terms of our script, our cards, and how we're going to operate that on, Monday night. So we've been able to get ahead to that point and speed things along that much further. So then going into Tuesday, we spend a lot of time in terms of Tuesday. Whatever we need to wrap up for that practice is always the first priority. But we've been able to actually start to game plan in the day, in the morning on Tuesdays, continue our game plan and get into more of the situational stuff. Okay. So that's where we're going to look a little bit more at, okay, what's the red zone look like or the scoring zone look like? Okay. What are some of their favorite plays? What are some of their top plays there? Okay, let's move the ball down even further. Okay, now we're, inside the 8, inside the 7-yard line. What are their goal line plays? What are their goal line personnel look like? Do they have different, goal line personnel that they put out there? Is there anything substitution-wise that we need to do to match up with what we're potentially going to see? So we're going to spend a lot of time on that. And then we're going to look at third down specifically. So we look, obviously, third and long is kind of where we start. And then same thing, third down, that's a really important down for us. That's our opportunity to be able to get that stop, be able to get that ball back to our offense. So we are going to really spend a lot of time just, looking at third down and what are the best ways for us to be able to get a stop on third down given the down and distance situations. So we're going to spend a lot of time on Tuesday wrapping that up. And again, even before we start practice on Tuesday, a lot of times we already have that ready to go. So again, Tuesday's practice is going to be a little bit more of the base kind of situations, right? That's going to be a little bit more, what are the top run plays we're going to expect? What are the top pass concepts we're going to expect? And really just trying to hammer out a fair amount of plays there. Here's the things that we're looking to expect. And then when we practice those things, that's kind of the situation we're practicing. Okay, hey, here's a run period. Here's a team run period. Here's a team pass period. Here's just a mix of team. Like here's, run pass. You got to be able to react either way. I'm really focused on that on Tuesday. And then going into Wednesday, that's where we bring in our game plan information from Tuesday where we're looking at more of those situations. Okay, we're looking at the red zone goal line. We're looking at, the third down periods and getting some of those calls ready to go. So we're getting that ready to go for Wednesday, and then Wednesday does roll around. Those are the situations that we're practicing. So we put the ball, okay, we have a period, we're going to put the ball in the 30, and we're just going to move it in. From the 30, we're going to go from the 30 to the 25, run a couple plays from the 20 to the 15, and keep moving the ball down into the goal line, all the way down to the 2-yard line, the 1-yard line, and keep running those situations. And then we're going to have a third down period, okay, hey, and we're going to tell you what the down and distance is. It's third and long, it's third and medium, and run some of those calls that we really liked from our game plan meeting and get those reps. Then from there, the rest of Wednesday is continuing to finish Thursday's practice. We're kind of at the point where, we can really stay a day ahead, kind of evaluate the things that we did during that practice that day. But like I said, really trying to stay a day ahead as much as we possibly can to be able to kind of keep things moving. So that way, when we get to Thursday, at that point, Thursday's practice is already completed. It's already done. Cards are drawn. We're good to go. And we're already breaking down the next opponent. Our defensive line coach does a great job as he's looking at it in terms of getting ahead. Myself and we're kind of getting the final touches on our game plan put together. So again, we have kind of that menu of all those different calls, all those different personnel groups, all those situations. And then we're really trying to get, all right, let's get into the call sheet side of our game plan now. Okay, if it's, P and 10, if it's 1st and 10 within the series, what's kind of the order of stuff that we want to be able to call things in, and where do we want to start at in each one of those personnel groups, each one of those situations. What are our wrinkles that we have from there? So, I mean, really each situation, down and distance situation, and each personnel group, we're going to have our base kind of menu of, just our base calls. Then from there, okay, what kind of stunts, what kind of blitzes do we want to have? Is there anything extra that we want to put into that? And we're really going to have about, 10 to 12 calls for each one of those situations that we can just kind of roll off of right away. We're really kind of starting to work on that on Thursdays. We're spending a lot of that time as Coach Lape, our defensive line coach, Coach Pollock, are really kind of working ahead in the breakdowns for the next opponent. So that kind of takes us in, finishes up the rest of Thursday, takes us into Friday. Friday, defensive staff meeting. We're going to, hey, here's the final touches on our game plan, to the point where, hey, not only what calls do we like, all right, but even the formatting of how it looks, our actual game plan sheet. How does this look? Does it look good? Can we read it? Is there any errors in that? And really putting a lot of detail into that when we final touches on it that way. And then obviously the rest of Friday, if there's anything left that we need to be able to break down, if there's anything left that we need to get ready for the next opponent, that's usually going to be finished up on Friday. So then that obviously leads us into game day. Anyway, it's just really nice. We're able to kind of divide and conquer. For the most part, each member of our staff really has a valuable aspect of our game plan in terms of, hey, here's the things that I like, here's the things that I'm concerned about, and everybody has got a voice. It's not just, one guy just, hey, here's what I like, here's what we're going to do. It's everybody, hey, here's what I like, but here's my concerns. And we put our heads together, and each personnel group, each situation, everybody has an impact on that. So that's why a lot of the credit, it's not just, it's not one guy, it's not just the coaches, but the players and their involvement, and even asking those guys, what are the things that you like? Do you feel comfortable in a call like this as we go throughout the week? And so we're constantly taking input from everybody. Everybody's got their own fingerprint on our game plan and what everybody feels comfortable with doing. So by the time Saturday rolls around, we're confident for sure.
Well, it's great that you value your staff enough to allow them to give input. I think that's important, that you are taking input from your staff. And obviously it's working, Matt, because you guys, again, have had great success. Couple short questions and then we'll wrap up. I'm assuming that Monday you give the players off that day so you guys can spend your time game planning?
Absolutely. Yep. So yeah, it's certainly a lot of different ways to do it. Certainly a lot of different ways to be successful doing that. But for us, Monday is the day off for the players. So there's no meetings or practice or anything like that for the players. Good way for those guys to be able to just really be where their feet are, and that's going to be in class, right? Getting off to a good start academically throughout the week, and Monday giving them that time on their own and giving us time to be able to really get ahead on our game plan that way, for sure. So it's a good start to the week that way.
And what time as a staff, Matt, do you guys typically wrap things up on Monday night? Is it early?
Yeah, so Monday night, so after our special teams, we're going to try to meet as a full staff for that special teams meeting, usually around 5:30, 6 o'clock or so. That special teams meeting, maybe about an hour and a half or so. Then we may discuss other topics and things along those lines in that meeting, not just special teams, but, what are some of the things that maybe got a little banged up in the previous week? Maybe there's an injury. Maybe we need to adjust some of the depth chart a little bit. So we'll discuss a little bit about that in that meeting as well on Monday. But that meeting will wrap up usually around maybe at 8 o'clock is probably about the latest from there. So from that standpoint, if there's anything else left for us to do, sometimes we'll go into that meeting. We might have everything done from a defensive side. Okay, maybe there's a couple things that we just want to kind of shore up, or maybe even ourselves get ahead for our game plan meeting the next day. But at that point, hey, there's been times where we've been out of the office right there. So maybe there's some times that we need to wrap up. We need to finish some things up for Tuesday's practice. Maybe it's 9 o'clock. Okay. But we're certainly not trying to stay into the office by midnight every night. If we have more of a structured time, we're going to be able to really focus on, here's the thing, here's what we're getting done at that specific time. That's when it's going to get done. And then that really helps you, as opposed to, hey, okay, whatever. Hey, well, we got this left. We got that left. What do we have left? Like, everybody knows there's everybody else's responsibilities. Everybody knows when everybody else is getting stuff done. So having that kind of schedule like that just really helps everybody to stay on task and get stuff done. There's no question whether or not this got done or that got done. Everybody knows what we needed to get done to move our game week along.
It's good that you guys aren't there till midnight, Matt. That's not good for anybody. And it's good to know that you can have things structured enough that you can be efficient.
Yeah, and that's something where we've spent a lot of time on our players in terms of their competitive freshness as well, and for them to feel good throughout the week and not whatever it is, taking 80 plays in each practice, almost playing a game's worth of plays in each practice. The coaches need to have that too, right? If you're in the office until 11 o'clock, midnight every night, you're not going to be fresh. When we meet together as a defensive staff, you're going to be a little bogged down. You're going to be a little tired. You're probably not going to be able to do your job as best as possible. When you do get out to practice to implement all the stuff that we're talking about, you're not going to be at your best either. So players having competitive freshness, but the coaches need to have competitive freshness along with that too.
Well, Matt, we wish you the best in the rest of the season, and good luck, and thanks again.
All right. Thanks, John. Really appreciate it. And again, hey, really thanks to the players. They're making this thing run and really proud of their efforts so far.
Coach Tschetter and that Wartburg defense showed you how to win with discipline and disruption. Congratulations to him and the Knights, and we wish them the best coming up.
Yeah, now let's roll into our head coach and coaching staff of the week. So that is going to Mike Sirianni of Washington and Jefferson this week after their 34-14 win against Grove City. This game really caught my eye because it was essentially over at halftime. Washington and Jefferson was up 24-0, and then by midway through the third quarter, it was completely out of reach for Grove City. It was 34-0 midway through that third. If we just look at first half stats, Washington and Jefferson's defense had more sacks and interceptions than completions allowed. They had 2 sacks, 2 interceptions, and only allowed 3 completions. Those 3 completions went for 15 yards, and they had 14 yards of sacks. So Grove City in a whole half of football had 1 net yard of passing on 15 dropbacks. And then looking at the offensive side of the ball, Washington and Jefferson punted on their first drive, but then after that, 4 straight scoring drives, including 3 touchdown drives of 64, 60, and 77 yards. If we then backing up and looking at the whole game, Washington and Jefferson nearly doubled up Grove City in terms of first downs and yards through the air, especially. Washington and Jefferson was outstanding. They outgained Grove City 337-97 yards through the air, and that was led by a really, truly impressive performance by Washington and Jefferson's preseason All-American wide receiver, Jacob Makosko. He had 15 receptions for 180 yards. Just pure dominance all around on a must-win game for Washington and Jefferson. Coach Sirianni did a great job getting his team ready to start conference play, and they're the defending champs, and they're going to hold that spot until somebody knocks them off.
After having a rough start, as you know, Logan got his team ready to play and came away with a big win. And we caught up with him after this big win.
Yeah, they had 3 games so far. All 3 teams have either been receiving votes or in the top 25. So they had as tough of a schedule as anybody to start the year.
Rounding out our honorees this week is Coach Mike Sirianni, head coach of Washington and Jefferson, the Hansen Ratings head coach of the week presented by Tully. Mike, congrats on a great win this past weekend over Grove City. Impressive win for your program and typical of you having a great win.
I appreciate it. It was an important win. I mean, we had not been 0-2 in a long ever in my career, so it was important for us to get a win and important us to get. It was obviously it's the first conference game, so that's important. But just to get that feeling back again, we hadn't had that feeling in a while, and it was really good to get a win.
As you know, every successful program is built on a great staff. You want to just give a shout out to your staff before we go into what you're going to share?
Yeah, I mean, I have a terrific staff. I mean, one thing I'm proud about, and our offensive coordinator, Sean Glossick, was on, I think, a couple years ago. Phil Bobich is our defensive coordinator. But out of our coaches, the thing that makes me most proud is I think 6 or 7 of them, I think maybe even 8 if you count our part-time guys and volunteers, are W&J grads. They played for me. They played in this program. So it really shows that they believe in what we're teaching the young men, and they like to come back and share that. So I'm really proud that I have a bunch of W&J grads in my program, including our defensive coordinator, Phil Bobich, who really did a great job. I mean, his back was really against the wall. We didn't play very well the first 2 weeks of the season defensively, and he did a really good job preparing our defense. This week against Grove City, he's a 2019 grad. W&J did a great job.
Well, we know the value that you put in staff, and yeah, you've had a great staff over the years. So thanks for sharing that with us. Listeners, they enjoy learning from some of the best, and we do consider you one of the best out there. So You talked about this consistent practice model and you talked about practicing with passion. Do you want to share that with our listeners?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's normal when you deal with 18 to 23-year-olds or high school coaches. God bless you guys. Deal with 14 to 18-year-olds. I don't know if I could do that. They're always going through something. There's always something going on in their lives besides football. So we try to keep a consistent practice just so they have something that's consistent. We don't practice any longer if we played Grove City this week, last week, or if we play a lesser team. Okay, we practice the same every week. We watch the same amount of films. We meet the same amount of time. So I think we try to keep that constant level of consistency going on. One thing that I did think that was missing from our practices the first 2 weeks, because in some way we lost so many seniors last year. And I mean, almost like most Division III schools, it was like a double class. You got your COVID seniors and your 4-year seniors, and they all both graduated. It wasn't just us. I'm sure a lot of teams feel this way. So we kind of graduated with a double class last year. And I didn't feel we were practicing with much passion. I thought we were practicing hard. We were giving effort. I mean, it was like, it wouldn't matter if we made a big play. It wouldn't matter if we gave up a big play on the defensive side to the scout team. It just didn't seem like we had that passion. And that's something that we really focused on. We have core values at W&J and compete. Passion is the second one. Confidence is the third one. But that's something that we focus on a lot. And I just didn't feel like we were doing that. We kind of turned it up a notch in terms of the passion that we practiced with and really got after it a little bit more last week.
Would you say that a lot of that is influenced by the coaching staff, or were your guys asking them to be a little more energetic, a little more enthusiastic, a little harder on the players in terms of getting them to practice with more passion?
Yeah, I think we went after it a little more. During the bye week, we always do one-on-ones every day during camp. And sometimes you get away with that during the season because you're trying to get all these team sessions in and you want to hit this team session. So we got back into some competitive stuff, one-on-ones with the DBs and the wideouts was something we went. And I love that because those are like two pit bulls going at each other when they're doing it. And I kind of stir it up a little bit. The Sirianni brothers have been known to talk a little bit during games and practices a little bit. So I kind of stirred that up and they got after it. We kept score. The losers had to do push-ups. So I think that just doing a little bit more competition helped us a little bit. And yeah, the little bantering between the coaches is never a bad thing. It's all in good fun. So yeah, I think the coaches did a great job of turning it up a notch, and the players followed a little bit.
Yeah, you talk about consistent practice models, Mike, but when you want some things that change in practice in terms of how you practice, do you feel it's important to change the way the practice plan, meaning what you're doing, how much time you're spending on team, how much time you may spend in one-on-ones? Do you think that there's a change that's necessary for that?
I think you changing the order up does a little bit. I mean, we always do an A's on A's. We always do a good on good session, and we always try to do a good on good 7-on-7 session because we don't do 7-on-7. That's one thing that I've gotten away with my practice. We do not do 7-on-7 during the season. We do third down passing. So I just rather have my quarterbacks throw with the rush around them and feeling and be in the pocket than doing just a 7-on-7. Now, that being said, we do some A's on A's 7-on-7 during the season, but sometimes we'll do field goal first. Sometimes we'll do it last. Sometimes we'll start with a team session. I think that's good. Maybe have a pre-practice, quick stretch, start with a team session. So yeah, we'll switch the order around, but you were really consistent in that we always try to hit. Listen, we weren't great on third downs on Saturday. We were 5 of 6 of 15, something like that, but we've been really good at third downs in the last years. That's a money down. We do third downs every day. I know some people are like, well, we'll do third downs this day. We do it every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then on a Friday in our walkthrough, we run through them again. So all 5 days, we'll do 5 plays of third downs. Whether we use them all in a game or not, we have them there. So we know, because it's such an important down in football and we have to convert. So that's something that we do every single day, but we'll switch the order up and things and sometimes throw in a little competition. But you got it because you don't want to be bored. The other thing we do every single day is punt. I mean, we punt every day. And to me, that's the most game-changing play in football. Whether you our punter dropped a punt when we were up 34-7. I'm feeling good. And then all of a sudden, you drop a punt. And even though there's only 7 minutes to go and we drop a punt, I'm about really my Italian temper on him because, you don't want to. So we punt every day and we practice that more than any play and it's not even close. And if you know our offense, we don't punt a whole lot, but still we practice it every single day. So I think that's important to just do that. And then the other special teams will try to hit kickoff, return every other day, punt, return every other day, but we'll punt every single day.
How about extra point field goal? Is that something that you guys do every day?
Well, that's why we were 9-1 last year instead of 10-0. We had some Carnegie Mellon schemed us up and blocked 2 extra points in a field goal against us in an overtime loss last year. And so, yes, we had been doing that anyway, but now we're doing it Now with a live rush, but at least with players trying with pads going into, obviously I'm a pretty big Eagles fan. You saw how important that was to them a couple weeks ago. They brought the field goal to win, 2 field goals to win the game. So again, that's another game-changing play. So yes, we will practice extra point every single day. Super, super, super important.
Just real quick, going back to your thought of you don't have 7-on-7. So in working your pass game, is your pass game all 11-on-11 stuff? Is that how you work?
Yeah, like I said, we'll do an A's on A's, 7-on-7, just 6 plays, just to get the blood blowing a little bit with the kids, let them compete a little bit. And knowing that we're not going to see the same coverage that we might see in a game, and knowing then they're not going to see the same concepts. We still want to compete. But then after that, we know we do not do 7. We do all 11-on-11. Like we'll hit. We do that part of our third downs, okay? And we'll run 12 plays. It's pretty much, you could call it third down, you could call it team pass, you can call it whatever you want. But I just have felt that I'd rather have, so many people with 11-on-11 now, or 7-on-7 are holding the bags up over their heads and they're simulating a rush. I'm like, why not just have a rush? Okay. I mean, why not just let him, if we don't pick up the blitz, obviously they're not allowed to touch the quarterback, or they get really mad, or they're not even allowed to they have to run by. But at least it gets him used, our quarterback, who's a first-year starter, gets him used to being in the pocket and feeling that rush around him. So when he gets into a game, he's, instead of just 7-on-7, I mean, shoot, I think you could complete half, well, maybe not half, maybe 25%, no, just kidding. All right, but most people are going to complete passes versus 7-on-7. You would hope you would. But I want to see them around with the rush around them, how they move in the pocket, how they slide the protections, how they keep the back in. Last week we played against a unbelievable player at Grove City named Ben Bladel, and we had to know where he was every single play because we were not going to I've seen him beat teams. He's beaten teams before, and we were not going to let just one player do that. So I think that's really important to have the quarterback just not sit back there and throw, but to be around pressure and to be able to make protection checks and things of that nature. Might take a little longer. You might not get any reps. As I know, I'm a rep person, but I still think it's worth it to have that pressure around him as he's throwing.
Well, Mike, we appreciate you sharing. We wish you and the staff the best going forward. And knowing you and the success that you've had, I'm sure that you'll continue to have success throughout the season. So again, good luck and appreciate your time.
Thanks, Coach Sal. Appreciate it.
Great perspective from Coach Sirianni, and congratulations to him and the Washington Jefferson Presidents for a great win this past weekend.
Yeah, congrats to all of our coaches this weekend. We only had 80-some games in Division III this weekend. Next week, we're back to a full slate. Everybody's getting into their conference schedules, 4 top 25 matchups again next week. But also, like I've said a bunch on this podcast, there's 240 teams in the division. We've got 120-some games next week. It's going to be great football all around, and there's going to be great performances from teams that we don't expect. And we love highlighting those performances across the country.
Thank you for listening to Coaching Coordinator Network, Hansen Ratings D3 Coaching Coordinators of the Week show. We'll be back again next week with our week honorees. Be sure to check out our presenting sponsor, Tully.app. Go to their website and see all the things that they are doing. Definitely something that can help you as a coach, whether you're at the high school level or the D3 level, in managing your athletes and their development.